Hi guys, my name is Alex. Boo, scared? Don't be afraid. Hi guys, my name is Alex. In this video, I'll have very bad diction. But what won't you do for beauty? Japanese men think the same way, dressing up as women for beauty, to look cute, to like themselves, to calm down, to relax. In fact, in real Japanese society, it's considered a way for them to relax and escape toxic masculinity. Whether this is true or not, we don't know. In fact, we know very little about femboys. In another video, I told the detailed history of femboys, a history that goes back centuries in Japan, while there are many femboys in Japan. In this video, we'll talk a little about the modern situation of femboys. Of course, I'll finally show you femboys. In connection with this, I found a very interesting website called Otomejuku, which had a lot of information. Briefly, it's called Otoko no Ko in Japanese. Ko is read not as child, but as musume, daughter, meaning male daughter. If we translate directly, it's male daughter. Satsuki Ishihara, a lecturer and representative of the largest platform for people who want to feminize, mainly. If you want to feminize, write about it in comments. So Ishihara, who is a person who has transitioned, says that there's actually no clear definition or clear difference between transgenders and femboys. Honestly, I tried very hard to understand the difference, thought for a long time, looked out the window, smoked. On the whole, I was able to understand some gradation. Femboys are against toxic masculinity, against boorishness, sweaty armpits, dirty underwear, and all these attributes of so-called masculinity that should have long passed into history. But it just doesn't go away because some people are too lazy to wash their underwear. That's what femboys are. Meaning, the most they do is wear makeup, maybe wear some gender-neutral clothes, meaning unisex items. Further on, there's a gradation of femboys who dress in women's clothing. For example, maid costumes and so on. Next we have crossdressers who completely dress up as women. They do makeup, go out in public like that. These are crossdressers. Then, when they start taking hormones, undergoing surgeries, that's already transgender, just so you roughly understand. We don't know what it is. The crossdresser boom in Japan happened in 2009. The main goal of this activity was dressing in women's clothing. Men interpreted it as it's normal not to be a man. Sounds good? Meaning you don't have to follow all gender stereotypes. You don't have to do what society wants from you just because you were born with certain things between your legs. And so many different publications started appearing on social networks, and crossdressers or femboys started coming out of the closet, so to speak. Everyone started to like it. The funny thing is that people mainly like femboys up to the level where body manipulations like surgical interventions begin. Before that, everything is cute, fun, you're sweet, beautiful, but when it's I want to get breasts, then it's over. We'll hate you. We won't deal with this, of course, because we don't need it. In Japan, there's now a period of Japanese fashion called genderless. More and more men have started wearing items considered women's clothing in society. For example, skirts and ruffles, long hair, bangs. If we look around, go out on the street, we'll see that women wear men's clothes and are ashamed of it. That is, they wear essentially pants which were forbidden for women to wear even 100 years ago. These were considered men's clothing. Now they wear them, so we see that women were allowed a bit earlier. It's good, of course, because I'm generally against everyone forbidding anything to anyone if a person does something that doesn't physically bother anyone. And if someone has a moral pain in their ears from seeing a man in a skirt, then as they say, that's not the problem of the man in the skirt. Because a person who is truly not connected to this culture in any way will not have any triggers on this topic. Meaning, in fact, a person shouldn't care about it at all if it doesn't personally affect them. Well, that is, if no one forcibly puts a skirt on you, then it shouldn't bother you. It's clear that aesthetic norms that vary for everyone. Some don't like it, some do. Me, for example, don't like how most men dress. So what? I'm going to go to them on the street and criticize them for their hockey pants? No, of course. I'm generally not used to looking at people on the street, as it's impolite. On August 23, 2024, the Japanese released research on how many boys wear skirts in Japanese schools and how many girls wear pants. Yes, indeed, schoolgirls in Japan were allowed to wear pants. This was officially permitted by the Japanese Ministry of Education in 2015. This notification was also sent to all schools. And what did the notification state? It is allowed to wear the uniform of the gender which the student identifies as well as sports clothes. By the way, I saw schoolgirls on trains in female school uniforms and sports pants. The skirts, jackets on the top with a bow, and sports pants below. That's how they walk. In short, firstly, they are too lazy to take off their pants after physical education class. Secondly, it's cold outside. Maybe you know, but in winter they walk with bare legs. No one actually forces them to do it. They just do it. And thirdly, naturally, to protect themselves from various chicans, perverts, and guys who take photos under skirts. You can understand, but it looks, of course, it looks like sweatpants with a skirt. Special toilets, universal toilets were introduced in some schools. This means that the toilet is not for men or for women. Well, such toilets in principle already exist in Japan. They are toilets for people with disabilities. Actually, anyone can use them. We will talk about toilets a little later, and about the well-known problem in an entire Western world with toilets related to cross-dressing. So in schools, it's allowed to register with the name the student wants. They can register the gender they want. There's a separate schedule for physical education for people who identify with a gender that does not match their biological characteristics. Swimwear was allowed for men in the sense that they can cover the upper part of their body. Separate classes are held for them, or rather should be held according to this notification. And single rooms should be provided during various excursions. In short, such notifications were sent by the Ministry of Education to all schools. 20% of directors said they had not heard about it, and the rest said they had read it, well familiarized themselves. Only some schools, however, such things were introduced. This happens because the school children themselves, who want their rights to be protected in this way, generally rarely commit coming out. So in fact, there are very few precedents where these rules are implemented. The reason is lack of initiative from the very people these measures are aimed at. So according to this study in 2023, 70.9% of schoolgirls wore pants most of the time. That's almost everyone. Not just everyone, but some. Of the schools where boys were allowed to wear skirts, only 11% or almost 20% wore them. Very few, because it is still very difficult for men to wear items of women's clothing without judgment and without feeling ashamed. But the most interesting thing is that in Japan, this story of men dressing as women is specifically popularized. Let's go back a bit to history. Before the Showa era, Shinjuku Nichome was considered a gay town. It still is. It's a place where all minorities gather and hang out. The thing is, cross-dressers were not allowed there. They hung out in Shinjuku Sanchome, when two very famous clubs appeared. The first was the Elizabeth Kaikan Club. The rules of the club were that men dressed in women's clothing could visit, but men not dressed in women's clothing could not enter unless they accompanied those who were cross-dressed. Also, it was forbidden to go outside. In short, everyone could be let in, but no one could be kept from leaving. They were 60s, 80s. Look at the photos. Here you can see old school drag queens. And these clubs were precisely connected with traditional Japanese culture. Wakashu, cross-dressing, kabuki, and everything else I talked about in another video. Professor Junko Mitsuhashi says that the new wave of femboys is not connected in any way with traditional Japanese culture. Although we know that nothing arises just like that. We know better than the professor, of course. That is, the new wave of femboys grew out of comic cat culture and out of the culture of various anime. But this anime were also based on something. Then 60s, 80s, transsexuals were engaged, so to speak. It was part of the sex industry society. That is, they were perceived by men as beings to serve them. For them, they were not just people who wanted freedom or self-expression. The meaning was, if you feel like a woman, then go serve a man. Like you dressed as a woman, go cook soup. Well, ramen in this case. And gradually, this all began to fade, especially in 2000s, when the culture of femboys appeared, who said, go to hell, I'm dressing up because I want to, not because I want to please you. At the same time, with the development of cross-dressing culture, emerged stalkers. Of those who cross-dressed, what do? They hunt them down. Yes, these are, of course, banal stalkers who pursue femboys. They especially like beginners who haven't yet reached such height in cross-dressing that they could be indistinguishable from a biological woman. They have two functions that all femboys highlight. The first function, they give confidence to beginners, which is a big plus. And the second function, they accompany them to different places, which also in principle gives confidence. Yeah, it turns out to be one function. The reason they pursue them may be that They actually also want to lead such a lifestyle, but they can't do it for some personal reasons. Undoubtedly, all femboys, crossdressers and others have haters. Of course, Japanese society is quite tolerant to such things. Most Japanese people simply don't care about it. But there are people who do care, and Rin Sugimoto, a crossdresser who went a little further, encountered them. Earlier her name was Jin Sugimoto, and she was an idol in a male group. Then she started cross-dressing, started her YouTube channel, and this YouTube channel currently has about 500,000 subscribers. She talks about how she dresses up, how she does her makeup, how she works with her voice, gait, hair, and all other things that society considers feminine. She told in her videos that she encountered misunderstanding in a karaoke cafe. A whole video was dedicated to this. When she came to the karaoke cafe, they asked for some identification, and she gave her passport. There her gender was naturally written. Then she deeply regretted that she did not give her driver's license where gender is not written. The karaoke worker, firstly surprised, asked, "What is this like? Are you a man?" Which is a principle quite rude for the service industry worker. But she explained everything to them. After that, she heard that when these workers left, they were laughing at her. And other crossdressers also report such problems. Mostly they have problems with visiting various medical institutions. They will also show their ID cards. Mostly they are asked, "Are you the mother of the child you brought?" Like that. From personal experience, I can say that I have not heard any hateful remarks towards crossdressers. I personally saw them on the street. This was 10 years ago. They were on the subway. I saw them a couple of times in the morning. Actually, it's very easy to tell they are very tall compared to Japanese girls. Mostly, I saw that everyone didn't care, so I shouldn't not care either. So after she announced that she was going to have breast surgery, she started receiving active, hateful comments on her channel. In connection with this, she made a separate video where she responds to these hateful comments, not particularly shy about her expressions. "What will you do in the future when you become a grandpa?" This idiot's comment pisses me off. "Shut the hell up, nasty grandpa or grandma. I don't know who you are. But since I want to become a grandpa, at your service." She says that if she uploads videos online, it doesn't mean that people can write whatever they want to her. And I support it. I also found an article about a guy who, after school, for 8 years, began to transform himself and turned into Hatsune Miku. Essentially, it's just cosplay. In principle, female cosplayers cosplay male characters, so it's natural that men cosplay some female characters. Another interesting person. This man is 47 years old. At the moment, he doesn't have too many Instagram followers, although they say he's somewhat popular. A femboy, although, though, not a femboy, but a femman. Yeah, he's 47, he has 2 children, and in general, in public, he appears only in the image of a cute girl. Looks very cool. He says he weighs 44 kilograms and really takes care of his figure to maintain that look. He's also the vocalist of 2 or even 3 Japanese bands, one of which is called Hide and Seek Dorothy. He sings well too. Of course, people write comments to him like, "Eh? Are you a grandpa?" Or they write, "Oh, I didn't think it was a man." Such things. Some write, of course, pleasant comments like, "Very beautiful, very cute." Most don't pay attention to such things. If they see something beautiful, they say it's beautiful. Female, cute beauty recently began to lose gender boundaries. In other words, there are some indignant men. Why the hell is everything cute, beautiful only for women? We want it too. That is considered feminine in society is actually only considered feminine. Naturally, all these gender norms and differences began to appear with the emergence of some society. And in essence, it's a human invention. Usually this nonsense is associated with religions, and it's very difficult to argue with this because it's a fact. That is, some people invented some norms that have lasted for centuries, and that's it. If you sincerely believe that a man should wear short hair, please provide arguments, truly strong arguments, that can defend your theory. Along with all this hype associated with femboys, with cross-dressing in mainly courses naturally appear. Feminization courses. You can subscribe to feminizations just like you used to subscribe to magazines and newspapers by mail. You can also subscribe to courses. That is for 10,000 yen a month. You receive various things for cross-dressing as women at home. Wigs, bedding, foam baths and other parts Why did I go into such detail? Also, whereas guides, you can watch videos that explain how to make up. Of course, the makeup will be slightly different because male skin is rougher. There are features and life hacks for this makeup to reduce cheekbones, nose and everything else. All this very important. Clothes are also sent out and you can keep these clothes. You can exchange them for others if you don't like them, if they don't fit. Because men who like to dress in women's clothes face a lot of problems when they want to buy clothes in a store. Of course, they feel some shame, some embarrassment when they want to do this. Although, of course, in most cases, no one from the sellers will say anything. I don't think there can be any problems with this. I bought foundation and other objectively feminine things for feeling and had no problems. Perhaps the problem is only in one's head. This course has a very funny slogan. Why not start secretly cross-dressing as women to refresh yourself? Honestly, I've seen very few examples of girls in Japan cross-dressing as men. Maybe it's connected with the fact that it will look very strange given their height, or maybe it's because Japan is in principle moving towards cute, adorable and feminization. I hardly saw any tomboys there. Maybe I just didn't look closely enough. The Otomejuku platform went much further. They created their own feminization courses, not just sending some individual cross-dressing attributes by male, but full-fledged courses attended by men aged from 20 to 60 years old. All for the purpose of learning how to make up, dress up, talk, sing, and so on. That is, they even have singing lessons. They have voice feminization lessons. I found several videos where femboys speak in female voices. Honestly, I can hardly imagine how that can be done, but if they do it, then it's possible.
どうやったん？声は、地声がこんなんなんですけど、この地声から、だんだん上げてくんですよ。あー、あー、あー、あー、あー、もしもーし、もしもーし、よろしくお願いします。はい、はじめまして、りょうと申します。こう見えて、男性です。
Whereas also various consultations are held there once a month, like with a psychologist. In short, I think a person needs comfortable in their hobby. This is of course not the end, not the limit of femboy culture in Japan. There are also special cafes with femboys. The concept of such cafes is very simple. Femboys work there, and that's basically it. They are very popular not only among women but also among men, meaning 50-50. But even visiting foreigners who are not very accustomed to such things say that when they enter such establishments, they feel embarrassed because they really like what they see. There are also butler cafes, there are maid cafes, where women are dressed as maids. Butler cafes, they're just where guys perform the same function. And I had a friend who got a job as a butler, being a girl, in one of these cafes. I don't know how. She says she dreamed of working in a butler cafe since childhood. And she succeeded. She worked there for some time but then quit because the salary was very low. It's funny that they didn't hire me for this cafe, but they hired her. Oh well, okay, I'm not offended. Bitch. And so we smoothly transition, not smoothly at all. Actually, we sharply transitioned to the topic of toilets. Several have been incidents in Japan recently known. One of these incidents involved a man dressed in women's clothing. He was wearing a wig and he was fat according to the article. Apparently, this is very important. Covering his genitals, in some way he entered a women's bathhouse. By the way, he was an employee of the women's bathhouse. He was exposed and naturally arrested, because in theory he broke into the women's premises. But during the interrogation he said that firstly, he felt like a woman and secondly, he wanted to look at women. In the article I read, they reflected on this topic for a long time. Maybe he just feels like a woman who loves women, a lesbian. In fact, there are many different nuances here. It's very difficult to understand such things, and it's also difficult to make certain decisions about this. Moreover, problems can arise. If a cross-dresser dressed as a woman goes into a men's restroom, then men might have some questions. Why is a woman here? That's actually happened once, by the way. I went to the toilet and a man in woman's clothing came out of a stall. I realized it was a man because he was tall. But at the same time, I saw another man, a different one, entering a woman's stall. Another time. Actually, I will solve this problem for you. You just need to make separate stalls with separate doors, meaning there should be no common space, neither female nor male. It's much simpler. No one will have to think about these questions being in a common space or a toilet where everyone pees, where there are doors with a gap at the bottom. Why is that necessary? Public toilets are complete garbage. Please poop at home. It's clear that there should be toilets at stations and public places and shopping malls, otherwise people will just mess themselves somewhere. In principle, why not just make, say, one corridor with doors along it, just small doors, stalls, and that's it. Go whatever you want. You can be one-on-one with yourself and the toilet. Such process as going to the toilet should be as intimate as possible. I don't understand all these public toilets with the stalls through which you can lean over and look. If you are in Japan, go to convenience stores, they have normal toilets, single ones, and at small stations too, single ones. They are convenient. But if you are in Korea, generally in toilet, it's better not to go to public toilets because lately it's very often said that there have been increased cases of filming in toilets there. That is, hidden cameras are installed there to observe how people go to the restroom. This also happens in Japan, but to a lesser extent, apparently. So that's the situation with Femboys. Subscribe to my channel. Bye.